Think of a specific person, someone you see regularly, a colleague, a family member, a friend you have had for years, someone whose number you pick up when they call, not because you want to, but because it feels wrong not to. Now think about how you feel after an hour with them. Not tired in the way physical work makes you tired, tired in a different way, smaller, slightly less certain about the things you were certain about before the conversation started. The ambition you walked in with, slightly dimmer when you walk out. You did not argue, you did not fight, you sat together, exchanged words, and somehow you left the interaction with less than you arrived with. This is not a personality conflict. This is a transfer. And Nietzsche identified exactly what is being transferred and exactly what it costs you over time. The concept is ressentiment, a French word Nietzsche used precisely because no single German or English word captured its full meaning. Ressentiment, pronounced rue-sentiment, is not simply resentment. It is the specific psychological state of a person whose instinct for power, achievement, and outward action has been blocked and has turned inward, fermenting into a chronic orientation of negation, envy, and the desire to bring others down rather than elevate oneself. The ressentiment of those beings who, deprived of the proper outlet of action, compensate for it only with imaginary revenge. The person who carries ressentiment cannot act toward what they want, so they act against what others have. They cannot build, so they critique what you are building. They cannot move forward, so they produce reasons why forward movement is naive, arrogant, or doomed. This is not malice. It is a mechanism, and it operates whether the person is aware of it or not. Here is how the transfer happens. You arrive at the interaction with a specific internal state, a direction, a set of beliefs about what you are capable of and what is worth pursuing. This state is not fixed. It is sensitive to input, to the quality of the ideas you are exposed to the emotional register of the people around you. The person carrying ressentiment does not attack your direction directly. They cannot. Direct attack is too visible and too easily rejected. Instead, they ask questions that contain their conclusions. But have you thought about what happens if it doesn't work? I just wonder if you're being realistic. I'm not saying don't do it. I just think you should be careful. Each sentence is structured as concern. Each sentence functions as contamination. By the end of the conversation, you are not thinking about your direction. You are defending it. And the energy you are going to use to pursue it, you have spent defending it to someone who was never going to be convinced. Whoever deviates from the 5 public opinions and stands apart will always have the whole herd against him. This is not coincidence. This is the herd's mechanism of self-preservation. The individual who moves forward threatens the consensus that inaction is reasonable. The herd neutralizes that threat not through force, but through the slow erosion of the individual's certainty. But here is what nobody says about why you keep tolerating it. The drain feels like loyalty. It feels like the responsible thing to remain available, to maintain the relationship, to not be the person who cuts off someone who needs them. It is not the ferocity of the beast of prey that requires a moral disguise, but the herd animal with its profound mediocrity, timidity, and boredom with itself. The herd has built an entire moral framework around availability, being there for people, not abandoning them. Tolerating difficulty in relationships because commitment means endurance. This framework does not distinguish between the relationship that costs you because it is genuinely difficult and worth maintaining and the relationship that costs you because the other person is transferring their ressentiment onto you every time they have access to your attention. You have been taught that tolerating the second is virtue. Nietzsche called it something else. He called it the slow contamination of a higher type by a lower one dressed up as moral obligation, so that the higher type does not recognize what is being done to them. Here is the cost you are not calculating. It is not the time, not the energy in the immediate sense. The cost is directional. Every hour spent in proximity to ressentiment recalibrates your baseline. Your expectations for yourself shift downward, not suddenly, but incrementally. The ambition that felt reasonable before the relationship became central to your life feels slightly grandiose now. The goals that felt achievable feel slightly naive. The version of yourself you were building toward feels slightly arrogant to pursue. Consciousness does not really belong to man's individual existence, but rather to his social or herd nature. It has developed subtlety only insofar as this is required by social or herd utility. Your mind is calibrating itself to the social environment you inhabit. Give it enough exposure to people who have stopped believing in the possibility of more, and it will quietly update its model of what is possible for you. This is the real cost, not an hour, a trajectory. 3 steps. The protocol to stop the drain. Step 1. Identify the carrier precisely. Not, this person is negative. That is too vague to act on. Specifically, after interactions with this person, my certainty about my direction decreases. My energy for action decreases. The version of myself I was building toward feels less accessible. Name that. Write it down if necessary. The identification must be specific enough that you cannot explain it away as your own sensitivity or their good intentions. The mechanism operates regardless of intention. A carrier of ressentiment does not need to intend harm to cause it. The transfer happens through the structure of the interaction, not through deliberate malice. Intention is irrelevant to the diagnosis. Step 2. Remove the access. Not dramatically, without announcement or explanation. The higher type must isolate itself from contamination, not through hatred, but through the cold recognition that proximity to the declining pulls the ascending downward. Reduce the frequency of contact. Stop picking up every call. Stop responding to every message within minutes. Create natural distance through availability, not through confrontation. Confrontation gives the relationship energy. Distance removes it. The relationship that cannot survive reduced availability was always costing you more than it was giving you. Do this quietly. Do this without making it a statement. Do this as an act of self-governance, not as a punishment for the other person. Step 3. Rebuild the vacuum. The space created by removing contaminating relationships does not fill itself with clarity automatically. It fills with whatever you put there intentionally. The slave revolt in morals begins when ressentiment itself becomes creative and gives birth to values. Use the recovered attention, the hours no longer spent managing other people's ressentiment on the direction that was being eroded, the project that was feeling naive, the ambition that was feeling arrogant. Return to it with the specific recognition that the feeling of grandiosity was not honest self-assessment. It was contamination. The vacuum is not the goal. What you build in it is. You already know what needs to be built. The question was only ever whether you would protect the conditions required to build it. Now you have your answer. If this hit differently than what you usually watch, subscribe. No motivation. No self-help. Nietzsche. Every week.